Evening and welcome to the Mindfulness Meditation Half Hour. My name's Casey. There may be a few more people joining, but we'll get started now. Good to see you. This is March 24th, almost into April. Wild stuff. I went on a hike today, spur of the moment thing with a friend of mine, and there was a creek and a cold plunge area, or a cold plunge took place at least. I was in the water for 10 minutes or something, impromptu, but I felt very at one with nature, and that was nice. I've been thinking about the concept of the past, the conceptualization of the past, and um, how it influences the present moment. And we talk about the past and future in the context of mindfulness. It's more of an idea, but that's not to say that past and future don't exist or that they're not important. Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher from the 5th or 6th century BC, he wrote the Tao Te Ching, one of the more profound philosophical texts of all time. He said, if you're living in the past, you're depressed. If you're living in the future, you're anxious. If you're living in the now or the present moment, then you're content. And to be sure, the past, as we view it, is an idea. It's something that we continue to change. It's something that we continue to develop our understanding of or distort depending on the events that we're trying to analyze in the past. But the past is very much a real thing. It's like obviously you've taken breaths prior to the one that you're taking right now, and chances are pretty good that for a while at least you'll continue to breathe beyond the breath cycle that you're staying with now. And that could be past or present or future. And so the insubstantiality of the past is something that we can use to our benefit because oftentimes we're constantly changing our mind about the past. There's a theory that the more we remember something, an event or a person or something, each time we remember it, that memory gets distorted a little bit more each time. And so it's actually more inaccurate the more we try to recall or remember a particular event or person or something. And that's just a theory, but Eckhart Tolle says that forgiveness is a recognition of the insubstantiality of the past. And some people say that, the past doesn't matter, the past isn't real. And whenever I hear a sentiment like that, the past has no power over you. I think of people in prison for like manslaughter or something, and it's like, no, that you definitely did something in the past that affects you now and has put you where you are. And so the past is very important and it's very relevant, but I think a more important question to ask yourself is to what degree does my past show up in the present moment? To what degree does my past influence what I'm doing now, who I think I am now? Because moment by moment, breath by breath, we're changing, but of course, things accumulate and behaviors and cycles. I mean, there are patterns there that show up in our day-to-day existence moment by moment, breath by breath, everything is changing, but we can certainly pick out patterns and we can certainly look to what has happened before us for inspiration, for guidance, for a wake-up call to change something. The more we understand the past, the more we can transform it and move on. There were so many things that were unconscious in my life that through therapy and mindfulness and stillness and reading and just a lot of different resources gave me a better understanding of why my behavior was the way that it was. And once that was recognized, I was able to do something about it. But I've said before in the past, it's very difficult to untie yourself if you don't even realize that you're bound, that you're tied up. It's going to be almost impossible. And the insubstantiality of the past gives us the ability to understand it on our own terms because oftentimes we're limited only by our lack of understanding with the past. And noticing how the past translates into what we're doing right now is very, very important. The saying that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. There's a Carl Jung quote, which, in upon further um, it, upon further research, he didn't really say this. This is probably like a paraphrastic generalization of many of the Jungian quotes. But he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, until you bring out the unconscious and make it conscious, that will direct your life and you'll call it fate. And so the hold that the past has on us, or the way that the past influences us, is actually under our control because we look back and we can choose through mindfulness, through meditation, through the practice of investing our focus, our attention in the present moment. Then we can think, oh, yeah, that was a really hurtful thing that happened to me in the past, or that was a really hurtful thing that I did in the past. How does that translate to where I am now? And a lot of times, if we turn around and look directly at it, the answer is that it doesn't really affect us, or maybe we've learned from that. And now the significance of such a painful event is that we don't have to continue reliving that or replaying that because we have taken something that was unconscious. Oftentimes, these things come from childhood or relationships, things that happened when our level of self referentialism or our level of understanding or our level of consciousness was lower than it is now, or we had no choice in the matter. We were, in many cases, a victim of circumstances. And oftentimes that comes through in ways that we don't even realize. And that is the unconscious remaining unconscious. We remain in the dark, as it were. But through mindfulness and meditation, we can start to pick up patterns and thoughts, and we can think, oh, why do I feel that way when I think that? Where does that come from? What are the roots of that memory or that feeling? And we just look at it and we can wait for it to pass. And when it comes up again, we can do the same kind of process. We recognize we're having it. We accept the feeling or the memory just as it is. We don't need to believe it, but if we're experiencing a thought or an emotion, we can sit with that and think, okay, well, this is what's happening right now in this moment. I'm accepting that. I recognize that that's the experience. I'm accepting that that's happening. We can investigate, and then eventually we can non-identify, which would be recognizing the insubstantiality of the past, or using what happened in the past to deepen our understanding and unbind ourselves from things that have happened that earlier on we had no control over. We realize that we do have control over that. The past repeating itself, once we get conscious, then it doesn't, then the past doesn't have such a hold on us because we recognize it for what it is, which is past patterns, different things that have happened to us. So the more we invest in the present moment, the more fluid the past becomes, the more we can use that, the more malleable the past and the future become, because whatever we do in the present moment, obviously, is going to translate. There's a comedian named Mitch Hedberg, and he has a joke. He said, someone showed me a picture, and he said, this is a picture when I was younger. Every picture is a picture of you when you're younger. He said, uh, if you ever find a picture of you when you're older, like, I wonder what kind of camera that is. So everything is a snapshot, right? Moving forward. You can't retake your last breath, you can't pre-take your next breath. But if we think of, a photo, a time shot, a still, it's like, yeah, that moment very much existed. And looking back, it may be more and more distorted the more we try to think back to it, but it did exist. And then there's another one, there's another shot, there's another still shot. And of course, we take all of those frames or those shots and speed it up, and it becomes like a moving picture or a motion picture. And that's in many ways what memories are. It's like a still shot, a capture of a point in time. And we look back, and there are memories, there are emotions attached to that. And the more present we are, easier that moves through us, the easier we can recognize, accept, investigate, non identify, transform a lot of the past. And then it's not as though the past isn't important, it can be very important, but it's helping us in a way that allows us to be a truer expression of ourselves. So many people are a victim of their past and they don't even know it. That's because they have yet to make the unconscious conscious. And until they do, they're doomed to repeat it, as the saying or the adage goes. So the more you invest in the present moment, the greater your understanding of what really serves you now, because so much of the past doesn't. And until we check in with ourselves and give ourselves the opportunity to look deeply into the roots of emotions, feelings, memories, things like that, um, until we do that, we may be more of a victim of our past than we even realize. So, sitting in stillness, looking deeply, gives us more autonomy, and it gives us the opportunity to change the past, change our understanding of the past, which is happening all the time, whether or not we realize it. If 20 years go by, you can think back to a memory you haven't thought of in 20 years, and you'll probably have a different perspective of it. Certain people that have hurt you, certain events that have happened in the past, if you just wait, consciously or not, those things will change. But we can take a more active approach in that change, a more proactive approach by sitting still, allowing whatever's happening in the present moment to happen, but staying in tune with who we are right now, not who we were. Although we can use who we were or our idea of who we were to better understand ourselves now. When I look back at the past, there's things that I've done and said that I regret. And that's because my consciousness, my level of consciousness, my level of self-understanding was so much lower than it is now. And do I regret it? Well, I can, that's up to me if I want to regret these things. But if I use them as an opportunity to understand and think, oh, I understand why I did that now. And because I understand that, the roots, the causes, where that came from, I don't need to do it now. And so you can regret the past, and that can be part of the process, but you can also move beyond that into a level of understanding that will not only break those cycles and those patterns that led to so much pain and suffering in the past, but you can make it so that you're not perpetuating those and hurting other people in the wake of your unconscious patterns. So that's the power of the practice, really. We come back to ourselves in the present moment, and then the past and the future start to make a lot more sense because we are filtering both, or we are interpreting both the past and the future in the steady standpoint of the present moment. And that's the best way to view anything, past, present, future. We want to view it all from the now, staying with the breath, coming back to ourselves. If we do that, then we will be able to move forward with the clearest, most mindful approach possible. So, finding ourselves in a comfortable seated position, we'll get started and notice what comes up, past, present, future. Take a few deep breaths, close your eyes. Relax, but stay alert. Thich Nhat Hanh says that understanding is the fruit of meditation. That understanding allows us to reckon with or come to terms with our past in a way that really serves us, that allows us to forgive ourselves, to heal, to move on. The past can have a lot of power over us, but Eckhart Tolle says that nothing ever happened in the past that can prevent you from being present right now. When we practice that, when we remember that, the past becomes less intimidating, less scary, less overwhelming. It takes time, but with the mindfulness practice, we can come to a point where the past is no longer using us at an unconscious level. Rather, we are using our past to grow, to transform, to heal, to change ourselves and the world around us. It's the power of this practice. And of course, we take it moment by moment, breath by breath. Take a few cycles of breath on your own. Whenever you're ready, gently blink your eyes open. Well, thank you as always for sharing this practice with me. I know firsthand how uncomfortable at times it can be to sit with emotions, memories, things like that. I have um, sat through emotions that are very, very uncomfortable, but being safe in the stillness of the practice, trusting in the process, which I've often talked about, keeps us safe, keeps us grounded. And then every time that memory comes around again, it can lose some of the hold that it has on us. And that is us relinquishing ourselves from the past. And we get to do that every time we sit down to meditate. So, again, thank you for sharing your practice with me. Enjoy your week. Always a pleasure. Take care.